The early teens are years of upheaval and turmoil. Sometimes young adolescents appear to enjoy utter uselessness. Parents of almost every child find the age of puberty or early adolescence full of problems. Psychologists call it a negative phase. Sometimes young adolescents appear to enjoy utter uselessness. Parents of almost every child find the age of puberty or early adolescence full of problems. Psychologists call it a negative phase. Psychologists call it a negative phase.
Hey. Joshua Casper back at you with Plug-in Boutique. Can you hear me? Am I getting through to you? Put it in the chat so I know that everything is A-okay. I'm just going to keep going. Today we've got a really great live stream. Alright, looking at the chat. No one's letting me know if they can hear me. I think I got a 15-second interval. Today, live streaming with the developers of Scalar 2. Primarily, it's going to be a Q&A session. So we've been asking you to put your questions in the chat. I've got my team member, Nick, on the chat. He's sending me all of the questions, and we're going to ask them all, as many as we can get to, roughly about an hour. And along the way, or towards the end, I'm going to be giving away some plugins as we, it's kind of custom. That's what we do here on the channel. But that's really not the big draw today. The big draw is Scalar 2 and the people behind it. It is just an incredible plugin. We love it. The entire Plugin Boutique team loves it, and the community seems to really love it too. So that's why we've dedicated our second remote podcast to having these two guys on here. It is 8 a.m. in Australia. So, I mean, they've gone out of their way to get up early with enough coffee to get anyone going, and we're going to be bringing them on right now.
Hi Joshua, how's it going, man? And hello and welcome
here.
and
if you want
thanks
to go ahead and say hello,
today.
David, don't forget. Thank you. I've already mentioned that it's 8 a.m. over there where you guys are in Australia.
Right, man,
so thank you so much
for
up
and working, usually
being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this early in the morning.
Here in Melbourne.
Yeah. So if you guys want to just go ahead and quickly introduce yourselves and say a little bit about what your role is on the Scalar team, just to let everybody know before we jump into some questions.
I guess we're still a fairly small team. I think we pride ourselves on that. The core, there's probably 10 core members of the team, and then we outsource to lots of different composers and producers. So primarily Scalar 2 is headed up by Ed and I, if there had to be roles, it would probably be more I'm leading towards the creative director role, who basically uses it more in the sense of as a composer, as a producer. Then I'll discuss some thoughts and ideas with Ed, then we kind of go away, and Ed effectively would be the lead developer who takes care of all the coding, the implementation, how everything looks, but it's very much at the top tier. It's very much Ed and I who discuss everything and agree on everything. So yeah, so I would say I'd be more a creative director, and Ed.
Yeah, I lead the technical team. So we've got a small team of developers, really talented developers with us. So it's I organize the development, how it looks. We try to get a lot of feedback from the community as well, and try to organize all that, get everything back up so we can discuss that internally. We exchange a lot with artists and producers outside of the team as well to get all this feedback. So yeah, we're really happy to do that today so we can get in touch with the community a bit more. So yeah, it's great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I just want to let you guys know that we are experiencing some pretty bad lag on the video and the live stream on YouTube. People are letting us know it's hopefully not going to last too much longer, but I suppose we'll just keep growing here. I am recording this, so we will be able to put it up as a video after if for some reason the stream doesn't come back to where it should be. But David, that was your piece of music that we heard at the beginning of the stream today. I just would like to say that I personally really dig it.
It's just a drum and bass tune, obviously, coming up on an album that I've got due for release sometime around March. It's one of the tracks off it. Bit full cycle, really, in that when finishing it off, I kind of felt like I needed some kind of authentic dialogue, so I went back to Loop Masters, and Loop Masters obviously where I probably started off my relationship with Plugin Boutique and so forth. So, but yeah, it's part of an album coming up. There's a sampler being released for the album end of January. I think it's going to be featured on Drum and Bass Arena towards the end of this month. So yeah, very much looking forward to it.
Oh wow, that's amazing. Did you use Scalar in any way to produce that track?
I think to answer that question honestly, I think I did. I mean, Scalar's always there in one way or another. Whether it's just, I mean, it's just always there. So I think I did. I think I did. Yeah, I'd have to open the session to see where the chords came from, but I think they may have actually come from Scalar. I'll let you know next time I speak to you, Joshua.
Very good. Okay, you can get back to me for sure. Well, I mean that's a question that I kind of ask for me personally is how do you two find yourselves using Scalar day to day in your workflow? Obviously, it's a fantastic plugin that is helping a lot of people become the best producers they can be. I was just curious how you guys might be using it inside of your productions. Ed, do you're a producer as well?
Really, no. I make a bit of music, but it's just as a hobby more than anything. And but I play guitar, so for me, I use Scalar a lot because I've never really learned the theory of the guitar. So I can play anything, and Scalar can identify the chords, which is really useful when you're a bit lazy like I can be and don't want to learn too much about where the notes are on the neck and things like that. So for me, it's really a tool to keep learning and discovering more music. So it's
very, very cool. Okay. Guys, put it in the chat for me. How is it going? Is it coming back? Is it a little less choppy? Man, that's just too bad. It's probably Australia to Brazil to the server in Sao Paulo is just killing us.
Do you want us to dial in? Would that help? You want me to,
would you like to what?
Try dial back in?
No, I think that would just complicate matters with how we're streaming. So, I would like to first bring up one of the comments I was made on sort of the hype video that I put out here on YouTube. It was more of a feature suggestion about Scalar than a question. And that was, as you guys have been implementing more and more bass patterns and melody performances and so on, it's like just, so do you know how many it is at this point? Like 300 and something at this point? I mean, it's such a large library of different performances. Someone had requested maybe the ability to favorite one of those or make a favorites folder or star them or heart them. Is that something that you have been thinking about, or is that something that might be able to be added in a future update?
Well, we've got several developer boards that we use, and as you can imagine, there must be 1,000 different features in our developer boards that we want to get to. The first thing I would say about Scalar before I can get Ed to answer that question in terms of implementation is Scalar is kind of a victim of its own success in that it started as something very simple and has grown massively. And the more we grow it and the more community that we get, the more feature requests we get, the more we use it for our own compositions and productions, the more we want it to do. So it's been shoehorned into this kind of UX. So it really does, the future of Scalar is really rethinking it from the ground up in terms of how it's presented. So we don't want to do too much. We want to add stuff, but we're trying to refine things. So Ed will say, in terms of that feature, which we've discussed, I'll say, great, let's just chuck a star on it. And then Ed, being the guy that really thinks these things through, thinks in a much more practical implementation, but we'll do this and we'll redo the browser and we'll do that and do that. And I think that's for a future version of Scalar. So my short response to that question is yes, I would like to do it in a simple way to not overcomplicate things. Ed would like to do it in the proper way. Then we just kind of discuss how it gets done.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we both agree that it should be in there. The question is how quickly we can put that in and which other feature request does it take the priority of. It's always the issue because there's so many things we'd like to do and there's so many things people would like us to add as well. So it's always a bit of a stretch to get everything in there in the right fashion. So usually we try to fit those feature requests into the development that we have planned, and we have planned to redo the way people browse through their songs, how they can filter them and organize them. It's coming. We'd like to make something really great, so people might have to wait a little bit more to favorite their chord sets and expressions, but it's coming. Definitely.
Or next week you'll just be able to add a star, and that will be the simple way.
I mean, you mentioned that you're kind of doing triage on what features you can add and which kind of take priority on the list. Are there any features that are on that list that you want to share with us? I'm sure this is going to be a question that's already been asked, but if there's anything you want to kind of hint at, I know you don't want to come right out and say something, but is there anything you can share with us to get people excited about the future of Scalar?
I think the most exciting things for users will be the ability going forwards to edit and customize the content of Scalar. This is coming as well, and that's probably one of the biggest things that is going to be added to Scalar in the future. That will really make Scalar better in all, like all the features that are in there will be able to, any user will be able to add its own content, customize it, and organize it better. So even to share it with other users and things like that. So it's we don't have set deadlines on all of that because we're still planning, we're still designing, we're still talking with people about what is really the feature we want to bring, because it's easy to get lost into just building things and making things more complicated. It's usually hard to add things and make it simple at the same time. So it takes a bit of time, but there's a lot of exciting things coming.
Oh.
There's probably, in terms of what Ed and I have discussed, that we're comfortable in, probably the initial short-term things are an iOS version, a standalone version, an overhaul of the guitar area. They're kind of the shorter term, and the longer term is just not so much in terms of features, but one of the things is to use Scalar to its full potential. Right now, we obviously have to open up multiple scalars. We'd like to make all of that much more accessible, and inadvertently Scalar has become a door of sorts. So the longer term roadmap is to basically go down that road of having it as a entirely universal, complete standalone workstation.
Well, it's well on its way for sure, and that's crazy because two of the questions I had lined up next, David, were about standalone and iOS apps. So that's crazy that's something that's going to be reality. I mean, I'm really looking forward to that. It's a really
well, just yet.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, sorry. Just yesterday, we was you always, Ed and I are always on the Skype talking, and he's like, well, if you want an iOS version, I'll just hit print and I'll give it to you right now. If you want a standalone version, I'll just hit print and I'll export it right now. And I'm like, great, but and that's the discussion. So we're close. I think yesterday we pretty much agreed that iOS and standalone
we're going forward.
Yeah. So I would say not long.
Very cool. Very cool. So where did the idea for Scalar come from? Was it chords? Was it melody? Was it for a tool for yourself, or were you looking out for people who were trying to get into music theory? Like, where did it start and how did it bubble up to get to V1 or version 1?
Well, me being a producer for my whole life and making music and not coming from a music theory background, I always wondered why. I grew up as a kind of a house and a techno producer, so ostinatos and 303 riffs was my thing in the late 80s, early 90s. So I was always good at programming riffs and making things, but how to enhance things harmonically got me, and it wasn't really until I was in London in my kind of early 30s that I needed to understand music theory a little bit more. So I just always wondered, why is there not an app where I can just have a 303 riff and I can just feed it into that app and it can say, here's the scale you're in, these are the chords you could be using. So I always wanted Scalar. And speaking to many people, I mean, it's one of those things, a lot of the people that I would speak to would probably say, I don't know why there would be any point, either you know music theory or not. So Ed, I was tutoring at Melbourne School of Synthesis, and Ed was studying the music production course there. And I was just chatting, what do you do, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, I'm a coder and I like to make audio stuff. And I was like, oh, great, I've got this idea. And he said, oh, yeah, I've got a similar idea. In fact, I've got a web-based idea kind of already there. And yeah, that's where it started for me.
Yeah, so this was just a little web application that was, you could punch in notes and it would tell you which chord or scale it would belong to. And for me, that was just, as I was saying before, because I was playing the guitar with no idea of what chord I would be playing. So I would just use it to know which scale I would be using. So for me, it was really a tool for myself to learn a bit more theory. And when I showed that to David, he was like, "But can you do that? And can you do that? And can you make it a VST? And can I use it?" And it seemed that all of that would be possible with a bit of time and thoughts involved. So yeah, we just started making it all as a one product, and that's you can see it in Scalar now. It does a lot of things, but there's many ways to use it. There's many approach. There's many levels, and you can be a beginner and use it, and you can be a renowned producer, and having made a lot of music and still find a use and value in Scalar every day. And for us, that's what important, is that it's still bringing this extra thing to your session when you bring it into your DAW. It's adding things. It's adding things to your software. So it's
no, that's awesome, and that's really cool. I mean, you guys seem to really have a nice synergy there. This is your first project together, yeah?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys are cooking, or what's going on, or just focused on Scalar 3, 4, and 5?
Well, Ed and I are always cooking, and I'm always cooking, and I've always been cooking my whole life. And my entrepreneurship just comes from being the guy that learnt the trade from scratch and understanding how difficult it is in so many areas, and wanting to always create things to make what would have been my prior life easier. But what we're realizing is that Scalar can be the conduit for all of that for us. It can have a lot more and can do a lot more. So whilst we want to go off and create our separate ideas, which we think would be really good for the community and the music technology scene, it's really about encompassing that in the most accessible way, and Scalar is that platform. So yes, we have lots of things cooking. How they can be presented, that's up to Ed and I to decide, I guess.
Very cool. Very cool. Another question from one of the community is there a feature that is already available in Scalar that you don't think is getting enough sort of daylight, or something that you wish people were using more, that maybe is like maybe a hidden feature, or just something that people are maybe intimidated? Like for me, for example, the modulation page was a little bit intimidating at first, because I can't even begin to understand it. But the fact that Scalar is telling you don't need to understand, I'm going to do it all for you. So that's kind of a feature that I think should be out in front of the community a lot more. Is there something that you, as the developers, think people should definitely be checking out?
That means you could have simple ID for a progression, just even Roman numerals or something. You want to do 1, 4, 5 or something. You could have triads, and then you find a nice chord set. So a friend sends you a nice sounding chord. You can extract the voicing in one click in Scalar and apply it to your other chords. And that makes a really simple progression a lot more complex in a couple of clicks. And yeah, it's something people don't see, and that's something you can do in a few seconds in Scalar. And you can right-click any chord and extract the voicing, and then right-click another one to reapply it.
And you can also go to the voice grouping menu
and having the extracted voicing as the live.
Is that a right-click menu?
Everything you click on Scalar.
Yeah, so it could be a global setting. Yeah, I think to add on that, I agree with Ed completely. I think the voicing and the ability to edit and utilize the voicing is even the voicing menu. The latest video I did, I released one on Friday, Joshua. It's Scalar 2 starting with the melody. It's on YouTube. It's seems to be quite popular. It's already had probably 20,000 views or so forth, because it's very simple. But what it does is it really looks at, here's your triad. How can you, by using voicing, make a very unique chord progression? I think that's one of the things about Scalar. It's not just about boxes and chords and drag and drop. It's about exploring the voicing of a chord. And there's so many ways that Scalar can do that.
For sure, for sure. And the modulation page, I want to just touch on that if you could, Ed, because I mean that was just, it came from out of nowhere. Honestly, I was blown away when it was added, and it's even had some new features added in the latest update. I mean, it's just an insane feature. Do you want to touch on any of that and what goes into making something like that happen? Like, what do you need to know to be able to program something like that? I mean, that's just a massive undertaking, I would imagine.
Yeah,
I mean, hats off to you because you've done it flawlessly. And
it's an introduction
is there
to
anything you'd like to say about
modulation
that page
in a
particular?
way. It pretty much to develop it, what we've done is that we've taken the rules that everybody can learn. You know, you take a YouTube video anywhere, you look at modulation, you're going to learn some basic patterns. And then based on that, we realized we could calculate some things, and figuring out a bit further and working with different composers and musicians, we've been able to derive a lot more rules and things that would work in a lot more context. And we've been just trying to find the commonalities in that and coding it into a nice screen. So the suggestions you get are actually real suggestions written by musicians. They've been validated. They work. It's not just an algorithm that does things. We've reverse engineered what a musician would have done in a lot of context in modulation and coded that. So it doesn't solve it all. It's not an automatic song maker, but it allows you to explore a bit further, especially if you start understanding a bit of modulation. What is the aim? What are you trying to do in your song? It makes it a lot easier to navigate because you have examples and a bit of a fallback, as in, it organized information a bit better than if you just had everything in front of you. So it's a nice feature. I think it opens the door to a lot more content, though. It could be guiding people a bit further, I think. And yeah, there's more types of modulations, more exotic things to do with music. And yeah, I think, it's going to keep improving in the future.
A question also just came in. What programming language did you use to create Scalar? I suppose the VST version that we're using now, not the web-based version.
So
I'm sure
it's written in C++, the language. And it's using one library called Juice to do all the audio processing and the VST packaging. So yeah, it's pretty standard for a VST.
Very, very cool. And what would you like to say to the criticism that is always prevalent on anything that has to do with music theory? Any plugin that helps people with music theory, there's always a very vocal minority that really likes to say, this is just, everybody's going to be making platinum hits now, or essentially is what they're saying. But I was just wondering what your thoughts on that sort of criticism were, because for me personally, I mean, I'm not the best at music theory. I have enough to get by. I can hear things with my ear, but for the modulation section, there's no way I could do that without the help of Scalar. And I don't feel like it's me cheating in any way. It's just helping me become a better sounding music producer in the end. And I was just wondering how you guys feel making this plugin and seeing kind of, the general comments, the people that are very vocal about it. Just go learn music theory, this sort of thing. I was wondering what you guys had to say about that.
I would say that that's exactly the type of response we want. That shows that we are making some kind of inroads and assisting people. I would say that also I would completely expect it because, I'm dealing with several composers who contribute to Scalar who are world-leading composers who are elitist in their thinking, and they're because they have studied and they've worked, and something like Scalar comes along and it instantly feels like, well, how am I supposed to get work if anyone can just... But that's... The reality is you can't polish a turd. If you don't know how to make something sound good, Scalar's not going to help you. Scalar will only assist you in your creative vision. So if you've got style in class, Scalar will help you exploit that. And it's the same argument with VHS is going to kill film. The Doors was going to kill band recordings. Sample CDs was going to kill creativity. Being able to master and limit. I've heard the discussion so many times. So I use the analogy of why juice an orange by hand when you can use a juicer? It's the same thing. So it's just there to assist you, and it's the theory's coming from you. It's not coming from Scalar. You're deciding what sounds good and what you're using, but we're just kind of empowering you with that theory and that musicianship. And I mean, if we can help people make music and help, because everyone's, when you're getting into it, it's all the same thing, isn't it? Oh, I've got this tune in my head. I just want to make this tune. I just want to make this tune. Well, if we can help that, then we're contributing to the arts. Then that's exactly what should be happening. We should be empowering more people to be able to realize their, creative ambitions.
Great answer. Ed, anything you want to say on it?
No, I agree with most of what have been said. It's just don't want to add too much, but it's for me it's about giving access to people that wouldn't have been able to do what they're doing without Scalar as well. It's complicated. Finding information is hard. Sometimes it's hard to know if the source is you can trust it. Is this YouTube guy saying the truth? Anything? Is it just like it always looks easy in a video because it's prepared and things like that. In Scalar, you have the time to go back and figure out what's going on. There's examples. There's projects from other people. You can download that. There's the community behind that helps you find things or realize things differently. For me, it's about access. And when you give access to more people, a lot of people that already had access feel like, yeah, but my access is worth a bit less now. I think it's a bit of a false argument, but for me, Scalar is all about helping people get into music, and if they can at some point stop using Scalar because they know it all, that's good as well. So people can have it, take whatever they want from it, and just keep creating. It's all about they wanted to create. That's why they use Scalar. Scalar wasn't forced onto people to force them to do something they didn't want it. So it's a a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool. Exactly. It's literally called a tool, and it's what it does, and it's doing great things for a great many people. So I mean, I see the comments. I'm on YouTube all the time, and I see the comments, and I just wanted to give you your opportunity to rebuff. Another question was, what are some composers, or who are some composers that you'd like to contribute in terms of the preset progressions? Who are some of your favorite composers that you would love to see take part in the Scalar preset chord progressions?
Well, I'd like to have all the great composers. I mean, I don't know, Junkie XL, Hans Zimmer, Lisa Gerard. I mean, there's just so many good composers that I'd love to get involved. And I think we'll get there. It's harder than you think to pin people down to make some chord progressions, to take the time. Dealing with artists is difficult, as you know, Joshua.
Yes.
So not in that they're bad, or it's just that they're busy. They need to understand what they're contributing to, what's the value to them. But we do have lots of great composers involved, lots of multi-award-winning composers who do really great things. But yeah, Ed, any composers specifically?
Specifically, no. But as you were saying, anybody that would like to contribute, and that it's all about growing the content. So for me, it would be covering genres that we maybe are not covering yet, and there's one of that. There's types of music that are hard to do in Scalar, like if anything that isn't in the Western theory world is still a bit complicated to deal with into Scalar. So I guess expanding in this area would be nice as well.
Producers definitely, I think. Yeah.
Who are some of the bigger names that are already available in Scalar? If you wanna drop some, I think Carl Cox gave you a few progressions, didn't he?
Yeah, Carl's helped us with some progressions. Ed's just dropping the menu down now so I can have a look. Look, we've got lots of people. I mean, in terms of the composers, we don't really like to mention a lot of the composers who work for us because they're ongoing, but I think you can pretty much work it out. Carl gave us some great chord sets. Carl's always supporting what we do. Fantastic man. I've known Carl for a while and worked with him for many years. MJ Cole, I love the stuff that the Temper Trap did. I think they're, whilst rock and alternative may be not my leading genre, I think they're one of the greatest Australian, rock alternative exports, and their chord sets were just fantastic. Pot Bellies have contributed there. Royalston, fantastic drum and bass producer. CC Rogers, Curtis King. Mike Huckabee, unfortunately, he passed, but Mike contributed some fantastic stuff. Josh Abrahams, well-known composer, producer from Australia, who works closely with us on Scalar. We've really been lucky. I mean, that's just mentioning a few, just in terms of the producers that have worked with us. MG The Future. There's been so many willing people who have contributed, virtually nothing. For nothing. Out of the goodwill. So that's an area that we're definitely looking at expanding. But, whilst I personally thought there was a lot of value in having, as a marketing tool, and having a lot of those chord sets from composers and producers, I'm starting to realize that actually it's more about, like Ed was mentioning before, customizability, versatility. And I think that's probably more where we want to go. We do want to have that as a guide. Get in, oh, cool, MJ Cole, love his stuff. I mean, his chord sets, he used those chord sets that he made were from a very, very famous artist who we all know, Her Concept. So they're amazing chords. I love those chords. But it's more about customizability and being able to take stuff and do your own thing.
Yeah, that you've kind of answered the next question that I was going to ask, and that was about sort of preset packs, like outside of Scalar. If you're going to start releasing anything like that, kind of like a Loop Masters pack, but for scale set or scale progression or chord progressions rather, from different artists and stuff. Maybe that's something you could look into. We've got 20 people in the chat saying Scott Storch needs to be a part of the Scalar collection.
Noted.
Write it down. I would be a fan of that too. If you get in touch, tell Scott to give me a call.
Hopefully Scott's watching.
Yeah, Scott, he should be for sure. And also, people are wondering about maybe chord sets from classical producers like Beethoven, Mozart, and so on. If that might be another avenue that you could go into as well, to take those and get some inspiration there. And you could always, I suppose, instead of putting a name on it, just put it in sort of a classical progression. Do you think that people are using more of the genre or more of the name-specific progressions inside of Scalar?
What do you think, Ed?
I'm not too sure, but I'd say there's a lot of people that use the genre in a creative way, as in they don't use the style that is written on there. They use the classical to make hip-hop. They use hip-hop to make jazz. And I think that's what's great, is you get a feel, as in the things that is flagged as hip-hop in Scalar can sound like hip-hop, but they're chords, so you change a little bit the voicing, you adapt, you use another instrument, and it sounds like something different. So, yeah, I'd say it's probably mixed, but what's great and what I like about it is the people mix and match, and are always just trying to use it more creatively than what we even thought about making it. So,
sure.
The other thing to add there, Joshua, just in regard to the classical stuff, bear in mind that's all copyright free, yeah? So I could go online right now and download 5,000 chord sets from Beethoven, Mozart, all the great composers, and we could put it all in. In fact, there are other software that's done that, and that's not a critique. That's just, if you go to something like Cthulhu, you can see there, I think it's Cthulhu, yeah, they've got classical chord sets. So that's a pretty easy thing to add, and I don't want to over-encumber Scalar with things that are readily and already available, because my take is if you want classical chord sets, you can just download and drag them straight on the Scalar and you're away. There are 10 in there, but we certainly, if there was we haven't had that, but if there were users saying we want more classical chord sets, we would add them.
Nice one. And you got a whole Scalar community now, right? Is that scalar.com? Where is the forum? What's the address?
So the forum is in the forum.scalarplugin.com.
Yeah, scalarplugin.com, yeah. Are people really active over there? Is that a place that people should be checking out? Are people sharing chord sets over there? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, chord sets, full projects, ideas, how to make Scalar sound differently, how to use it differently in every dose. As people post tutorials, like even for us, it's like so much content to check, and like it's a lot of things, and it's a great feeling. Like it's really amazing to see all those people creating things every day and sharing them with the community. It's great. We're trying to emulate that a bit more, trying to organize things. It takes a bit of time, but we'll try to develop features to make that even easier in the future, so people can just collaborate and share things faster. And I think it's a big part of Scalar going forward.
Very, very cool. Another thing, you had mentioned earlier, David, that you guys were kind of looking to overhaul the guitar section. I've seen at least 6 comments saying guitar articulations in the chat right now. So that, in terms of what people want, it seems to be guitar articulations. Is that something is on the board of things to do?
Yes. Let's be transparent here. I'm not a guitarist. Ed is. So whilst I drive, I might be a lead in suggesting many of the features, Ed and Paul and a couple of the other guys in the team are the guys that pretty much lead the guitar. I always want to be involved in things and have an understanding of things. So I think the combination of Ed and other guys in the development team, plus some great lead guitarists who are helping us out here, including Joseph Greer from the Temper Trap. We've got a guy called Carlos who's an active member in our community. Hi, Carlos, if you're watching. We definitely want to get him involved. We've already had Ed and the guitarist guys mention how it could be improved. So it's specifically been an area that we have not overdeveloped. But let's call it, just for the purpose of this discussion, let's call Scalar 2.5 a complete guitar overhaul, which will be well thought out, and I would imagine extremely exciting for guitarists, and led by guitarists like the ones we've got in our team, but also world-leading guitarists.
There you go. Question answered. Looking forward to it for sure. Another question I have personally is about inter-plugin communication. Is that something that's in the works? Like, for example, if I change my key and I've got 3 instances of Scalar, they'll all be updated to that key. Is that something that might be coming, or something you've even thought about? Or I see David laughing there. I'm not too sure about what's going to happen now.
It's already in there in the form of synchronization between instances. So if you have many instances open, you can define, like, sync from one into the other. So there's a couple of things you can synchronize, like the selected scale, for example, the chord contents, the voicings, etc. So it's already in there. But same thing. It might, like, we plan on making it a bit better and easier to manage in the future. As everything is, we try to build a small version, see how much use people get from it, and based on that, we expand where people actually use the feature. And this one is really becoming bigger and bigger. Scalar 1, you would load one Scalar 1 in your track, and that would be pretty much what you could do with it. Now Scalar 2, everybody has 4 or 5 instances everywhere, and it drives
bass line, melodies, chords
to itself to detect the output and things like that. So it's the ecosystem is growing. So all of this tooling in between Scalar instances is also going to grow as well.
Awesome. So awesome. So let's keep putting comments and questions in the chat. I have a really long list of things here. Also, Mr. Busha, we're not going to be doing a live demo today. We're kind of experiencing bad internet connection, so I don't want to make David look bad live on the keys with choppy internet speeds. Are you planning a way to automatically adapt voicing so the progressions are smoother with inversions and so on?
Well, there is. So I think probably voice leading is what we're talking about, and that's something that we're looking at. But there is voice grouping at the moment, which works quite nicely. But in terms of voice leading, that is something that we're definitely keen on looking at. But voice grouping is, I love the dynamic voice grouping profile, which is up in the top right hand side, which kind of does that.
Big fan.
But voice yeah, I love that. Voice leading is something that we're definitely looking at.
Someone's asking about Scalar and Ableton push integration.
Yes, that's something we've discussed in the past, and even with machine, we'd like to have templates specifically so you can bind things and have your chords in Scalar. It takes a bit of time because, unfortunately, there's a lot of hardware. So if we want to support pads, people will have different things, different hardware, different versions. So, but we'll get there. It's on the roadmap.
That's what the pad view. That's the point of the pad view was not only to have multiple patterns, but the reason we came up with pad view is you can already see the grid implementation is there, and we've just got to link it up. You know, Ed's just got to link it up.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you need to do, Ed. It's quite simple. So I guess talking about pad view, someone said, is there any roadmap for including larger song forms in Scalar? And I would assume the answer is pad view, right? I mean, if you can hot swap from the first sequence to the next one, and then you can essentially have how many pads? 64 chord length chord progression.
Yep, that's 56 chords, I think. You can get, and you can link them as well, so it plays sequentially.
Right down the line. That's right. If you hit the play button
So you can have a progression of 56 chords, which usually is a lot for a chord progression. But we know it's still limiting for some people because everybody has a different use, and people just like to jam along with Scalar, things like that. So they would like to have an infinite pattern that they can repeat, or like have more variations and things like that. So we're looking at all of that and how to make it better, more integrated in the flow, because at the moment it's true that you have to switch screens and switch patterns. It's not always easy, especially if you haven't used Scalar much in the past. As soon as you get into it and you learn a bit more Scalar, it gets easier. But all of that is going to be improved in the future as well. I think we're still, with the feedback of the community, everything we do is now we realize we could have done it a bit better. And the next iteration will work a bit better, and we'll have longer patterns and things with various size, and it's coming. I know everything takes a bit of time, but everything is coming. Ultimately, we'd like to do everything in there. Hopefully, it doesn't become a massive monster. We try to keep it lean and simple, but it's
you've already added so many new features. You've already had to add the new page switch menu over there in the top right. So, I mean, we see what you're doing. We also see that you are paying attention to the community. You're paying attention to the feedback of Scalar users and implementing a lot of what these suggestions are, like guitar articulations, for example. I'm sure that's something we're going to see because you guys are on top of it. And I personally, and speaking on behalf of the community, appreciate you guys and see what you're doing. And that's a really cool thing to do. Not everybody does it. You don't have to do it, but doing it is awesome. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Josh, it might be a good time also maybe to just talk about Plugin Boutique and their involvement, your involvement, and I think I personally just want to say a huge thank you to, because a lot of people don't realize how it works, but yourself, Gareth, Matt Pelling, Andre, I mean, all the guys at Plugin Boutique, I could go on and on, but I mean, Plugin Boutique has been instrumental in the success of Scalar, and whilst it may seem like Ed and I, and effectively it is Ed and I, it's Ed and I and Plugin Boutique, and their involvement, their contributions has been, I mean, I don't know if there's anything you want to say or lead there, but, from my heart, it's a very special thank you to Matt and Gareth specifically, who have helped us so much and have been really lovely. And the whole reason this was a Plugin Boutique thing is Matt Pelling, who started Loopmasters and started Plugin Boutique, has been a dear friend of mine for a long time, is one of the genuine people in the business that is really all about heart, and you just don't find people like that, and it's loyalty. And he kind of has always been one guy that would say to me, can you make a sample pack? And the next week would be like, I'm going to this festival, will you come and join me?
Good guy.
He's
just
that. One of those. So Matt, if you're watching, we love you, man.
I'll make sure to clip it. I'll clip this bit and send it to him in a personal email. And Gareth as well, I'm sure.
Yes.
Another question was, how many scales are currently in the released version of Scalar?
That's a good question. I'd say about 60 different types of scale. that must cover 8 families, with each of them having 7 modes, plus a couple of different families that don't have all the modes, plus the pentatonic, plus some more exotic ones. We want to add more. It's on the way. It's at the moment we try to focus on things that we could guarantee would work, and the things that would be detected would be correct and not leading into detecting super exotic scale, and then you can't find a chord that sounds good with the rest of your content and stuff like that. So we try to limit things and prioritize the more classical, like mainstream things, because ultimately everything is pop music in a way, and even though Scalar can help you go further from that, it's always good to be able to go back to what does it mean if I was in C major, what is this chord, what is this scale, what is this degree, and then you can transform and see for yourself where you're going.
I was just going to add to that too. Like, you do get people going, well, I don't understand why you don't have XXBBBBYYY scale. Now, the whole thing about Scalar is Ed and I don't want it just to be a Bible or a reference. That's not really what it's about. I think the benefit, the future roadmap that we have of being able to, for example, create your own scale. So I was in Saudi Arabia doing music for the royal family over there for tourism, and they suddenly threw in a composer who said, well, actually the scale we use is this, this, this. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I wish Scalar right now enabled me to program those notes, create my own scale, because then it would be super useful. So it's kind of more those examples that really relate for us. So it's not about how much can we throw in a Scalar, it's about, how can we empower the user a little bit more. And I think the example I gave was a good example of what makes the cut when we're looking at including things in Scalar.
What is a scale inside of there, David, that people should definitely be checking out?
I'm looking at this now. I mean, I don't know, man.
The modes of melodic minor, I think.
I mean, I think when I'm not a theorist, so I write music in a practical, what sounds good way. So I'm always, thinking, okay, well, like in electronic music, I realized I always, as a younger producer, always used a flattened second, which could be a Locrian mode. So I think it's more like, what are you using and what don't you like? Why do I always have to go to a diminished over here when I can use something else? So I think in terms of scales, I think it's more about, why does this chord progression always sound boring? Why does number 7 have to do that? What other scales have a different, and that's what the modulation, one of the which one am I talking about? The modal interchange, thank you, is what we call it, can be really useful, because it can say, well, here's all your standard diatonics, but if we go to the modal interchange, instead of using a B diminished in a major scale, I could use the, so I think what scales is more about what scales encompass what you're trying to achieve. I know that's not really the answer, but that would be my answer.
It's all right. That's a perfectly fine answer. Another thing that people are really chiming in about are more advanced options for the Arpeggiator. Is that something you've been thinking about, or something that is, again, on the board of features to come?
It's something we discussed. It's not the highest priority at the moment, because there's way better Arpeggiator out there. I'm not going to lie, like the Scalar ones is limited. It helps you sketch things. If you want to do something really complicated with an app, you'd probably have a better one in a synth or even a dedicated plugin. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have patterns and more complicated things to do in the future. It's just, it's not a priority at the moment. And I think the expressions and the Arpeggiator is really simple, and any Arpeggiator would do kind of the same thing in the same way.
I mean, the expressions are like advanced arpeggiators, aren't they, essentially?
Yeah, they are, and they're a bit more complicated. They can be polyphonic. They can be,
They're also human and real. A lot of the expressions are played. We have a guy, Sean Keat, who's a fabulous pianist, and he will come in, literally sit on one of those keyboards that you're looking at there, and him and I will discuss, well, how would you play okay, cool, let's record that, so we capture that. But Ed, as a purist and a musician, I definitely want a better arpeggiator. I mean, I've been hassling Ed for ages, and he gave me the second octave. He's just finally put it in after 6 months of me hassling. I'm going, oh yeah, and he's right. I can just pull up a million other. But the fact of the matter is, I've got Scalar controlling all the synths behind me here. I don't want to have to go anywhere else. But there are so many other features, and sometimes Ed can be the voice of reason there. And I'd like to say, stop, just arpeggio, but you would have 98% of the other users complaining that we're focusing too much on the arpeggio.
You're probably right.
It will happen. It will happen. Definitely will happen.
Very, very good. Okay, well, I mean, it's about an hour. We've run through most of the questions. If there's any other questions, now is the opportunity to put it in the chat, guys. If there's anything else you guys want to say, David and Ed, about Scalar, about the future of Scalar, what you've enjoyed seeing from the community, or just sort of any comment around Scalar, I suppose now is the time. We're going to be wrapping up fairly soon.
Well, I'll let Ed say what his thoughts, but on behalf of the team, it's so cool. It's like Ikigai in Japan, Japanese culture, which is about doing something you love, contributing to the community, and getting paid for it. And we're very, very honored that we're able to do that. So we're also active musicians and producers who love using Scalar, and we've also got this whole community that has taken it well beyond where we ever imagined. So we're really, really keen on making the most of that opportunity, and we're just very, very thankful for everyone at Plugin Boutique, for all of our users. I'm thankful to Ed and all the coders. They're absolutely amazing. I've worked with several coders in the past before, and these guys are not only in terms of ability fantastic, but people, they're just so willing. And that's the key with Ed and I, is we're both really keen on a priority of making Scalar even more special. Ed?
Yep. Yes, I agree with all of that. It's really humbling to see where people have taken Scalar too. It's great to see how it's used. We're really happy about the community feedback. We're really happy that people come and connect with us, and just come and say, I wish it could work this way, because that's what I'm doing. That's the issue I have. And it tells us how we assume wrong things about our users sometimes, but it also sometimes validate that we're not alone with our little issue playing the guitar in our room and not knowing what we're playing, or not like, I need something to make things faster, and that's what Scalar helps people do. And people see that, they want to get it even better. That's a great feeling. Like, it's people really took ownership of it, and they know that we're listening. So it's it's great. And thanks for the community for that. It's really humbling.
Joshua, maybe want to quickly ask anyone, is there any content that they want to see from yourself or myself? Both you and I make lots of videos for Scalar, which are very popular. Is there any specific videos or anything that anyone wants us to cover?
That's a very good question. So, as David just said, if there are some video tutorial sort of topics that you'd like to see covered in more detail by either myself or David, now is the time to put it in the chat. Also, we're going to be giving away a Plugin Boutique plugin to one lucky winner. If you comment right now, you will be in the running to get that. So if you want to go ahead and put all that stuff in the chat right now, I got someone monitoring for Scalar tutorial ideas and just comments in general to go ahead and win a plugin. David, you've got more than one plugin, don't you?
There is Carbon Electra, which is a synth that I made with Plugin Boutique a few years ago. Yes.
So did you do all the coding on that, or?
Oh, no, I don't code, man. I'm not that smart. No.
Oh, yes, you are. Come on now.
No, I actually built that in Reactor 4 or 5 from scratch, and that was, God, how anyone could live in the head of a life of a coder, I don't know, because I had so many weekends of I'm just too stupid to do this. But I managed, and then I found a coder, a Canadian guy called Elliot, who built it for us at Plugin Boutique. And the whole premise of Carbon Electra was, I'm pretty old school. I just love jumping on a synth, and I don't when I get buy a new synth. I don't listen to the presets. I'm just making my own thing, and so I just wanted something that worked like that, and that was the premise of Carboelectra. No hidden menus. It's a lovely sounding synth, and I use it all the time, and I know lots of producers do because it's really simple to just pull up and just make a sound with.
Very cool. So it's just the two then. It's that you've had your hands on.
Just the two, yes, just the two
Just two plugins, incredible plugins.
Just the two.
And what about you, Ed? Do you have some other projects going on in the VST world?
No, just Scalar at the moment, and the other things we're working on. And but yeah, it's we try to fit everything into Scalar. We could have made a lot of different plugins, but I think it's good that it's the one place to go when you load that into your DAW. You don't have many things to think about. You just load Scalar. We try to keep it like that, so we try not to go on to too many different paths at the same time.
So Scalar 5 is going to have a drum machine, is what you're saying?
Yeah, probably, yes.
I don't think you have to